Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, the biggest, most bumperest episode of the football podcast you have ever listened or watched. Whichever way you get the podcast, it's the biggest ever. There is a reason. That reason is covered. It's not a blame culture. It's nobody's fault. But if it was somebody's fault, you'll find out whose by listening and or watching. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Share the podcast around with your friends, family, loved ones, people you meet in the street. Get the podcast out there. That's the main thing. Anyway, if you like football and you like big, juicy podcasts, let's get cracking because we've got one right here for you. This is CookieCast, the football podcast.
Recording in progress.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. It's that time once again. We are here for the football podcast, and we're here to bring you Middlesbrough, Hull, Nottingham Forest, and for at least a couple of weeks, potentially, Wrexham-based football news and scores and predictions for your viewing and listening pleasure. Obviously, I will bring you the Middlesbrough-based information. Bringing us the Hull information is Mr. Stuart Woodmansey. How are you, sir?
Very warm, but other than that, pretty good. Cheers.
It is warm, obviously, with the weather being so horrible over the last couple of days. The second any sort of sunshine breaks out, it just instantly makes the temperature about 85 degrees. That was nice. Bringing us the Nottingham Forest-based news is our friend Matthew Moore. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. No temperature-based problems up there, I hope.
I don't want to be a whinge, but I'm not very well, so my temperature's all over the place today.
Well, we hope he's feeling better soon. And, as discussed on the season preview podcast, bringing us Wrexham-based news, knowledge and information. It is the Welsh Dragon himself, Mr. Andrew Cook. How are you, sir?
I'm real worried now. I never pictured this to be part of the deal. I have no knowledge of Wrexham apart from I once watched a TV show that had Rob McElhenney and his mate in it, and now I'm supposed to pick up some kind of knowledge base.
Have you ever been to Wrexham, Andy?
I have not been
there
to
we go.
Wrexham.
Led me in and just sold me down over there.
He took us down the primrose path, ladies and gentlemen.
From a temperature perspective, I can tell you that I am naked below this t-shirt. So.
Podcasting like any good man filmed from the nipples up should. He has got very little clothing on. Well done, sir. So, we'll dive straight in with week one's predictions. Now, a small spanner was thrown into the works with the news that Chuba Akpom probably won't be fit for the start of the season from a Middlesbrough perspective. And from a Wrexham perspective, in their pre-season game against Manchester United's under-23s team, the Manchester United goalkeeper decided it would be a really good time to try and decapitate Paul Mullin, which would end up with Mr. Mullin suffering a punctured lung. So we'll be out for a undetermined amount of time. Mr. Woodmansey has a point to make.
It's on the sort of theme of bad news and people to stay away from on the picks. I have just reliably been informed there is a heavy chance that even only after a handful of games and limited appearances thanks to injury, sad times, gents, it looks like Tete is going away for good.
What, to be being sold, or?
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming Liam Rossini is not going to take him round the back and stick him in a bin. But yeah, it looks like he's been sold. From the spending the club has done, apparently they're little worried about the old budgetary financial fair play restrictions because we're not a big club that can get away with it. So they're having to balance the books a little bit, I think. So he's one of them. I seem to be hearing. So basically, keep your tetes away.
Doesn't matter. I've definitely not had to just make a change in my book at all. It's absolutely fine. Yeah, no problem.
Just the rage coming from Andy's corner there was just like, oh my god, how many more?
So, we'll go through week 1, then I'll explain something as we get to the end, which will become clearer when we get to it. So, week 1. None of our teams are on the early slot in this particular one. They're all kicking off at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, as God intended it. And our first game takes us to the Riverside Stadium, where Middlesbrough will take on Millwall in their first championship outing of the season. Obviously, it's my team, so I will give my prediction last. Let's open up the podcast this season for Mr. Andrew Cook and your prediction, sir.
Okay, first game of the season. We need to, if we're finishing the season number 1, we need to start as we mean to go on. It's a 1-0. It's a solid, just a plain old 1-0. I'd like Tuba to be scoring that goal. Obviously, his name has had to be replaced. Not once, not twice. Every single time I've predicted a Middlesbrough game. So, Fours will be picking up a lot of slack for Stu and everyone else.
Can you feel the Fours? Very nice. Matt, what have you got for this one?
I've gone for a 2-1 Middlesbrough win.
Okay.
Riley McGree and Fours. And Old Boy Rule in full force. Duncan Watmore to score for Millwall.
Lovely.
Nice.
Mr. Woodmansey.
In a very similar predicament to Mr. Cook. However, I have replaced Akpom's name with Jones. So 1-0 to Borough with the Jones to score.
Stu Jones in. Some Borough goals. That just leaves me. I have gone for a 2-0 win, and I've picked the exact same goal scorers as Mr. Moore, but in a different order. I've gone for Force to score first and McGree to get the second. Very nice. That moves us to our second game of the week, which sees Norwich City take on Hull City. Obviously, Mr. Woodmansey's team, he will go last. I'll jump straight in here. Norwich ended the season terribly last season. I don't think there's been very much movement from a transfer perspective other than them signing players that seem to be in their late 30s. I believe it was a second tier podcast of sorts that put something out about the fact that they'd signed, who was it, Shane Duffy, Ashley Barnes, and they were rumoured to be bringing in Tom Ince. And their social media account just said they're going to be a hell of a team in the 2013-14 season.
When you said Shane Duffy, I was like, they've resorted to signing like people from Boyzone. Like,
Very good, very good.
Can we just clarify that the moment any company of any kind gets a strong social media game, they are immediately elevated in every possible way. The moment they lean into something, they make a joke at their own expense, anything like that, you're just like, well done to you, sir. 2 points. Well done.
100%.
At some point, we'll have to delve into the early 2010s of football because, wow, shocking. Absolutely shocking. I was watching the Premier League years yesterday. And it was like Lucas Podolski was up front for Arsenal, and I was like, "Wow!" I didn't even remember it. My mind just must have like gone, "No, let's not bother with this anymore because this is terrible."
One of those things where your brain just goes, How did that happen? Well,
I
yeah,
was just sat there going, wow, this is terrible. But yeah.
But yes, I think this is a good time for Hull to play Norwich, whilst they're still trying to get themselves sorted both on and off the pitch. I've gone for a 1-0 Hull win with Estepinian to score the goal. Matt?
I've kind of gone the opposite way, kind of start of the season, that stuff thing. So I've gone for a 2-1 Norwich win. It's Sargent and one of those old-timers, Barnes, getting the goals for Norwich, and Estepinian getting one for Hull. Bit of a tricky start to the season.
Andy?
Paul, if you just want to take your prediction and put it in my box, that would do me nicely.
0-1. Estepinian. Go on then, Stu. Tell us how it's going to go down.
I've smacked it right down the middle. So you guys have got wins. Matt's got a loss. I've got a 1-1 draw. I've got Barnes for Norwich. And just to start with a smidge of optimism, let's see if we can get him rolling nice and early, seeing as our loanee strikers worked out such a treat last year. Put Delap down for the goal for Hull.
Liam the Dilapidator to score his first in Tigers colours. Our third and final game of the week, which of course does mean sad time. No week one prediction for Mr. Moore's team. Tears for Matthew. Oh wait a minute, no tears, because that means his team is decent and in the Premier Division.
And can't lose in the first week of this.
And can't lose after week one. More importantly than that. It takes us to the racecourse ground, where Wrexham will take on MK Dons in their first game back in the Football League in 18 years, something like that, I think. 2005, I think. Relegated 2005, 2006. So it's around 15 years. It's Mr. Cook's team. He will give his prediction last. Stu, what have we got for this one?
Another 1-1 draw for this one. I think they're at home. I think they'll give it a hell of a go. I think they would have given it an even bigger go had they had their talisman still breathing without assistance. So I've gone for Palmer for Wrexham, and I'm assuming it's pronounced Isa, E-I-S-A, for the MK Dons.
Isa, of course, the man whenever he would score on Soccer Saturday, Jeff Stelling would utter the immortal words, "What a sound investment." So,
you can bank on that.
Lovely. I have gone for a 2-0 Wrexham home win. Big crowd. You'd imagine they'll put on some form of pre-match entertainment, get the crowd whipped up into a storm. Make it uncomfortable for the Dons coming into revenue territory. I've gone for Lee and Palmer to score the goals. Matt, what have you got for this one?
I've gone for a simple 1-0 Wrexham win. Palmer to score.
Very, very nice. Mr. Wrexham, you're up, sir.
Obviously, with changes afoot, I've had to make changes. Some small, some bigger changes. I already had a 2-0 Wrexham win down. I haven't changed that. However, I had Mullen and Palmer both scoring goals. I've had to put X2 behind Palmer's name and get him a second goal out of the gate. Why not? He's going to be picking up a lot of slack, let's put it that way.
Very nice. So, ladies and gentlemen, this would be the part of the podcast where I say thank you very much to these three gentlemen for joining me, and come back next week to see how we got on with the scores. Actually, I don't lie, no it isn't, because there's cup games to go through. So I'm talking out of my arse as per usual.
I mean, that'll be a hell of a video for the YouTubers.
Absolutely. The fourth game of the week takes us over to West Yorkshire, where Huddersfield Town take on Middlesbrough. This is in the first round of the EFL Cup and sees old boy Neil Warnock taking charge of Huddersfield against his former team, Middlesbrough. My team, I will go last. Stu, what have you got for this one?
Well, seeing as you alluded to old Colin, it's a cup game. We all know that our teams aren't built for such things, so I've got Huddersfield down to win 1-0 with an even worse Jordan Rhodes winner.
Disappointing.
Yep.
Andy.
A strong Middlesbrough victory of a 2-0. Again, no real surprises. I did have a certain somebody down to score a goal here. I've had to replace that person with who I think is still on the team, according to the website, Hoppy, and Fours to get yet another goal.
Hoppy is indeed still on the team, but given his outings in pre-season, I would be surprised if he's anywhere near the first team, as he looks way short.
Yeah, it was one of those. I'd to put something.
Cup game, perfect time to play him, so I think if he's going to play, it would make more sense that he plays in the cup game rather than the league. Matt.
I have followed Stu's lead and gone for a Huddersfield 1-0 win with Simpson scoring. Because I looked on their website, he's a big unit, and I thought that's the kind of guy that Colin loves.
Certainly is. Rounding out a trio of home 1-0 wins, I too have gone for a Huddersfield Town win. And for some reason, I just think that I think they're going to have good results against us this season. I think he sort of knows how to play against us annoyingly. So I've gone for 1-0 with Karoma to score.
I know this is like early doors and we haven't even got there yet, but like realistically, unless you're going to do some damage in the last 8 of the competition, you'd much rather put that effort into the season early doors. Like, what's the point of the extra games?
I agree. Can't really say much more than that. Our second cup game takes us over to Hull, where they will be taking on Doncaster Rovers. Stu's team, you'll go last. I'll just jump in straight here. I've gone for 2-1 on this one, and I've put down two Hull goal scorers, and then realised I haven't put down a Doncaster goal scorer. Oh,
solid work.
So I'll give my Hull goal scorers of Syed Manesh and Slater, and because I know that he's there because he left Hartlepool to go join Doncaster, I'll go for Molyneux to score for Doncaster. Matt, what have you got for this one?
I've also gone for a 2-1 Hull win.
Yep.
With Cynic and Traore.
Ooh. Who?
He's gone, I think.
Who was?
Is he still there? I think Cynic.
When I was looking, I thought he was one of the loan. I think he was one of the loan players who didn't get extended or re-upped.
Tufan.
And who was your second player?
Traore.
And your Doncaster player?
Satona.
How do you spell that?
Sotona.
Whoever he is, he's got an exotic name. I like it. Andy.
Oh, sorry. That's a lie. He's been injured. He's rehabbing a shoulder injury, so he did go back to his Turkish side, but he's set to link up with Hull City again sometime in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So we may see him arrive shortly, Mr. Cynic, but not just yet.
Not officially listed as a contracted player.
No.
That's fine. Andy?
I am going to come clean as a whistle on this one. I have cheated. I have got a 1-1 draw. Syed Amash to score for Hull City. And Ironside to score for Doncaster. Now, to clarify what I said to start, I have cheated. Because there's 2 Ironsides listed as being playing for Doncaster. So I've doubled my chances. Because I didn't ask for a first day. Cheaters
it's
never
a
prosper.
sneaky tactic,
Cheaters never
but
prosper.
I think I'll allow it. I'll allow it. The chances are one of them could be a goalkeeper. So.
Knowing my luck, one of them's a freaking trainer.
Stu.
Well, funnily enough, I didn't know that, but I do have Ironside on my sheet because I know that Joe Ironside is a striker for Doncaster, so I will specify mine. But I have us down to lose in the same vein as I picked the Borough to lose. So I've got Hull 1, Doncaster 2. We've gone way in on Syed Manesh in this game, so stick me down for that one as well. And so yeah, Ironside for Donny and Sotona.
So you specifically wanted Ironside J.
Yeah.
No, just.
Well, if the other one's called John, then I'm still quids in. So Jeremy Ironside. That sounds more like an accountant than a footballer, but whatever.
And Sotona. There is one game remaining in this week's predictions. However, before we give that, we're going to step away and take a very small break before we bring it to you, because obviously, momentous occasion, Wrexham's first League Cup game in nearly 15 years. It needs a bit of build-up, doesn't it, let's be fair. So, we're going to step away, but you don't need to step away, because the wonders of technology means that it will be brought to you just like that. So we'll be right back to give you Wrexham versus Wigan Athletic in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Don't go anywhere.
Recording in progress.
See, told you, you didn't have to go anywhere. The feed just happened for you. So, our last game of week 1 sees Wrexham take on Wigan. Now, this is all obviously on the proviso that Wrexham don't get beaten by MK Dons, in which case we'd all look a bit foolish, because that would be Andy's first change of the season, and he would become an MK Don supporter overnight, much like all of the MK Don supporters did back in 2004 when their club was created. Hopefully that doesn't happen though, and we get to predict Wrexham versus Wigan Athletic correctly in the League Cup. So, obviously it's Andy's team. He will go last. I'll jump straight in, get us off the bat. I've gone for a simple 1-0 home win with Lee to score. Stu.
Also gone for a simple 1-0 win. However, it will be McGuinness scoring for Wigan.
Oh no.
I mean, in theory, Wrexham should be the exact opposite of what we just talked about our own teams, because they have got the film crew to do the Hollywood run to the quarterfinals, to inevitably get their ass handed to them by somebody else. And I'm sure it would make a spiff in Series 3 on everybody's ear-shaped streaming service. But, yeah, no, I've got McGuinness, old boy Hull Rule, coming back to spoil the party.
Interesting. Matt?
I've also gone for a 1-0 Wigan win with Wyke.
Charlie Wyke?
Yeah.
You're interested to see that, because obviously he had the health scare with his heart last season, and potentially the season before? Not entirely sure. So hopefully he's made a full recovery from that and he's able to play. Fingers crossed. Mr. Cook?
1-0 to Wrexham. I had, no surprises, Mullen to score, switched him out for Palmer again.
When he comes back from that injury, he's going to have some making up to do, because 37 goals last year, he'll be chomping at the bit, won't he?
100%. So, as I was saying previously, before we went into the Cup games, usually at this point of the podcast, I'd say thank you to these 3 gentlemen for joining me and bringing you the Week 1 predictions. However, one inconsiderate arsehole, as it probably would be best to put, within the group, decided it would be a really good time of year to go on a 3-week holiday. No names being mentioned. It's definitely not possible to, out myself at this particular point as that particular arsehole. Oh wait, I definitely just did. So, as a... I was going to say precaution. It's not really a precaution. It's just getting ahead, I suppose. We've now got the predictions for weeks 2 and 3, which we will bring to you right now. So, week 2's predictions start us off with 2 early kickoffs, where we have Arsenal going up against Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. Mr. Moore gets to bring us his team's first result of the season last. Sadly, I think this will be much similar to how they started the Premier League season last season. I've got this down as a 2-0 home win. I've got Jesus and Odegaard to score the goals for Arsenal. Stu?
I have got Arsenal to win 2-0. And my score sheet reads as everybody's favourite Christian lunch, rice Jesus.
Interesting. Mr. Cook?
1 apiece. I'm reliably informed by their website that Saka was an option. So I picked him.
Solid option.
And a name that I suspect we may see a fair amount this season, Awonyi.
Picking up, hopefully, where he left off last season. Scoring goals against the Arsenal.
Before Matt makes his prediction, can I ask him a question? How long into the game before they go, well, Forest haven't scored away from home this season?
It'll be...
Classic.
They didn't score many goals away last year, apart from the 2 at Liverpool and
classic
2 at Chelsea.
TNT Sports and their high banter. Go on, Mr. Moore, what do you reckon for the first game of the season?
Well, it's a bit of a revenge game, isn't it, really? So I've gone for a 3-1 Arsenal win.
Scorers?
Rice, Jesus and Saka. So a bit of everybody's goal scorers there, I think. And Awonyi to get a goal. I think they're still a bit shaky at the back. They've not really added to it massively.
They signed that right back, didn't they? That Timber. Hopefully don't fall over, but you know.
Yeah. Chop him down to size.
Way!
I was more worried that because they like to play the music at the Emirates for certain occasions, if they were going to start playing Kesha.
That wouldn't surprise me either.
We can only hope. Our second game of the week takes place at exactly the same time, as these are both 12:30 kickoffs on Saturday, where we have Coventry City taking on Middlesbrough in somewhat would class as a revenge game for the playoff semi-final defeat. My team, I will go last. Andy, what have you got down for this one?
Middlesbrough are going to take revenge with a 1-0 win.
Excellent. Goal scorer?
I'll skip the whole thing that I was saying before, and I will just tell you that it's 4s.
Very nice. Matt?
I've gone for a 1-1 draw.
Okay.
And I've gone Godden and 4s.
Stu?
I have gone for a 1-0 Borough win, same as Andy. I think losing Gyökeres will probably damage them somewhat this season. So I think the revenge is there for the taking. And I have got Mr. McGree to get his account open early doors in the season.
Very nice. I've looked upon this as a very much revenge game, and I would like to think that Middlesbrough will punish Coventry for their sins of how dare they beat Middlesbrough in the playoffs and deny them of their rightful place at Wembley, probably to have lost against Luton, but you know, that's neither here nor there. I've gone for a 3-0 away win on this one. Very optimistic, you might say. I've gone for goals from Crooks, Silvera and Rodgers. Our next game of the week sees us back in Hull, where Hull City take on Sheffield Wednesday. Stu's team, he goes last. I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this one. I've gone Slater to score for Hull. And I've gone Old Boy rule in effect. Which one has he picked? It's Wilkes for Sheffield Wednesday. 1-1 draw. Matt?
I've also gone for a 1-1 draw.
Yep.
I've gone for Estepinian. And I've gone for old dad boy rules. So Windass, Josh Windass.
Knew it. Andy?
So, this might be a very, very, very bad idea, but I realised that sometimes you got to roll the dice, you got to go with something, and I realised that last season I wasn't throwing out many of these bad boys. 0-0.
Is Stu about...
Potentially puts you out of the points. Or gets you
Is
two.
Stu about to piss all over Andy's chips here?
That game even finishing 0-0. There's more chance of it. There's more chance of it finishing with 10 men on each side than it being 0-0.
So, just before Mr. Woodmansey gives his prediction there, everyone who's listening to this, basically put your house on a 0-0.
There is absolutely no way that Bailey is winning that match.
Absolutely.
I've got Hull to win 2-0. Check me out and all my optimism in one.
Absolutely.
I know.
Keep some in the bank, man.
Well. First home game of the season, isn't it? Well, Delap to keep rolling, so he's down for one, and Estepinian for the other. Thing is, historically, we generally do all right against Sheff Wednesday, and it's either a scrappy kind of battle or an absolute pasting. So,
watch this space, ladies and gentlemen. So, our next game sees AFC Wimbledon taking on Wrexham, and his team. He will go last. I'll start us off with a 0-0 draw. Matt?
I've gone for a 0-1 Wrexham win with Lee to score.
Stu?
I've gone Wimbledon 1, Wrexham 2, and my Wimbledon goal scorer is Davison, and my Wrexham goal scorers are Cannon and Mendy.
Cannon and Mendy. Andy?
It's a 2-0 Wrexham win, obviously. Come on now. Palmer and Dalby.
Dalby?
That's what I've got here, yes.
Dalby.
Like the
Sounds
forest.
a bit close to that place that's, very, very close to Nottingham. Might want to be careful. Mr. Moore might not be speaking to you by the end of this podcast.
Leicester.
Very good. Burton upon Trent. Our last game of week 2 also involves Wrexham, but it's not a cup game. This is just another league fixture, as apparently they just hate player safety in League 2. It would appear. So Wrexham versus Walsall will close out week 2. I have gone for a 1-0 Wrexham win with Palmer to score the goal. Stu?
2-0 Wrexham win with Lee and Palmer.
Matthew?
Ditto.
Andrew?
1-0 Wrexham win with Waters to score.
This Wrexham stuff is difficult because we're all going off stuff that we've seen on TV that's from the season before last. And we all know what happened last season. And none of them now are fit to play.
It would be sod law that, within the first minute of the first game, they get 3 guys sent off, and it's Palmer, Lee, and whoever anyone else has mentioned. And they're then missing for the next however many games.
Yeah, there's been this whole thing about them moving up into a different league, and then they just get absolutely spanked in every every possible way.
It would be absolutely. It would be textbook if they just got beaten.
Can we realistically pick Ben Foster to score?
Stranger things have happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, week 2, done and dusted. Obviously, we'll go through these predictions when we're back, which won't be towards the end. Won't be until the end of August at this particular point. Our first game of week 3 takes us back up into the Premier League and sees Nottingham Forest taking on Sheffield United. Andy, what have you got down for this one?
Nice, simple, clean. 1-0 Forest win. And he's back, ladies and gentlemen. As long as he is still in the team, he's back. Johnson to score.
Hopefully, if he does, he's got at least one of these in his locker, straight in front of the Sheffield United supporters. Or, you know, you can probably get away with this. You probably can't get away with that. But, you know, for those of you listening to the podcast, that will make absolutely no sense. I gave it the cupping the ears symbol and then the spraying something onto the supporters gesture, shall I say.
If you were wondering if we were back, ladies and gentlemen, Andy's just hit the 1-0 Johnson. We are back.
Is that the sound of several collective Cookie Cast bingo cards being ticked off by me? I have gone for a 2-1 Nottingham Forest win here. I've gone for Gibbs White and a 1-ye Forest and Ndai to score for Sheffield United. Stu?
I've got a Forest 1-0 win. I think that there will be some people amongst that, whether they mainly be residing in the crowd, who will still have one eye on that horrible, shitty fist fest at the end of the other season when everything went a bit fisty. So I think that Forest will be looking to get some points on the board early. I think it's tough on them that they got Arsenal first game because they've had all summer to cry about the fact that they fell off the wagon. But yeah, Sheffield United is a good chance to get some points on the board. So 1-0 or 1-ye. I won't be surprised if somebody gets sent off though, by the way.
No, I mean Johnson would probably be my pick there, or Captain Shithouse himself,
or you know, half of the Sheffield United forward line,
or just
Sheffield United,
or just their manager. He's a twat as well. Matthew,
I've gone for a Forest 2-1 win. A 1-ye and Gibbs White. And Berg to score for Sheffield United.
The fact that he's still at that club sickens me.
He's only
and there's probably every chance that he won't be there at that club by the time this game rolls around, to be honest. Because I'm surprised someone hasn't bought him yet.
Yeah. Our next game takes us to Blackburn, where Blackburn Rovers take on Hull City. I have gone for a 1-1 draw here. Gone for Ennis to score for Blackburn and Delap to get his first goal in Hull City colours. I definitely didn't just forget that he was playing for Hull at this point and just go, oh yeah, I picked him as top goal scorer. Might be handy if I started picking him to score at this point. Matt, what have you got down for this one?
I've gone for a Blackburn 2-1 win.
Okay, goal scorers?
Gallagher and Smodics.
Oh God, I've got to spell that now. Is it S-Z?
S-Z-M-O-D-I-C-S.
Oh, man, you could have sold him down the river there and just spelt out penis. That'd have been fantastic.
It's about Mo Dick. It's about Mo Dick. You goal scorer for Hull?
Tufan.
2. Andy?
Very much like my last Hull prediction, something else that I wasn't throwing out a lot of last season. I'm with Matt in a 2-1 Blackburn win. Unlike Matt, I'm not going to do you with some crazy spellings. Gallagher. and Vale. However, I'm going to say
Vale?
Vale.
V-A-L-E?
V-A-L-E.
To play on the left.
That's a bit harsh. That not only have we got to play against Blackburn, but they've got another lot from Stoke-on-Trent to contend with. That's a bit harsh. Goal scorer for Hull?
Estupinian.
If Paul ever does me for a dad joke on this podcast ever again, he can get fucked.
Oh, language, Timothy.
First of the season.
My
prediction.
My
the man who did a
prediction.
little jerk off sign before. Yeah.
My prediction. So I thought I've put us down for a draw in the first game to build up to a win in the second game. So we're going to absolutely lose 1-0. And much like Matt, I have clearly been hankering for Smodics.
Muddy. It's a great name. That's good.
I think that the listeners probably know by now that if there's any slightly innocuous name that could relate to anything like slightly that way on, I'm going to pick it. The name, not like that.
Our third game of week 3. It's my boys. It's Middlesbrough in a repeat of the cup game from the week before, taking on Huddersfield Town. However, this one takes place at the River Dance. Andy, what have we got down for this one?
2-0 Middlesbrough win. Silvera
Yep.
and Fours.
Balls.
Is there a chance he'll be back by then?
I mean, we're talking 3 games in. 4 games, I suppose, technically. So, yeah, I mean, like, depending on how badly his knees imploded or whatever it is that's keeping him off the training pitch at the minute, but we're getting into the territory of towards the end of the transfer window as well, and you know how much Premier League teams panic. Stu, what have we got for this one?
Well, I had Borough down to lose because it was a cup game previously, so clearly this is where we're going to pull out last season's favourite score. Middlesbrough 3, Huddersfield 1. So I've got Jones, Crooks and Foss. And then we've got Ward to score for Huddersfield.
For those of you who didn't hear it, Stu predicted fours. It's got fours. Was it fours?
No,
I think he said fours.
For the YouTubers that saw me say it through gritted teeth, it was 4.
Matt?
I've gone for a 2-1 Borough win.
Yep.
Jones and Fours to score.
Okay.
And Hudlin get that little bonus.
So, sorry, bless you.
I mean, I've got to call Hudlin, Hudlin, Hudlin.
Hudlin. I've gone for a 2-0 Middlesbrough home win with Rodgers and Gilbert to score the goals. I now look back through my book and consider that I'm pretty sure Borough haven't conceded in the first 3 league games of the season. I am ridiculously optimistic, it would appear. Our last game of week 3, and indeed our last game of this set of predictions, takes us back to North Wales, where Wrexham will take on Swindon Town. I'll jump in here. I have gone for a 2-1 Wrexham win. Palmer to score twice for Wrexham, with Adaloy to get the goal for Swindon. Matt, what have you got down for this one?
I've gone for a 2-0 Wrexham win.
Okay.
Palmer and Hayden to score.
Palmer and Hayden. Stu?
Playing the percentages and giving a duplicate prediction on the hope that it comes in at least once. So 2-0 again. Liam Palmer again.
For 2? Oh, sorry, Lee and Palmer.
Yes. So basically the same prediction that I gave for the last game, because usually what happens for me is I'll pick something and then it happens either a week before and a week after. So I'm going to pick the same prediction 2 weeks running in the hope that it at least yields 1 point out of all of it.
Very nice. I like it. Go on, Mr. Cook. Close us out with this week's last prediction.
Very similar to others. 2-0 Wrexham win with Palmer and Dalby.
Palmer and Dalby. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
If anyone from Wrexham is listening, sorry, Paul. If anyone from Wrexham is listening, the fact that just looking at my book, they'll have 10 points after 4 games. I think they would snap anybody's hand off for that. Everybody's very optimistic. They're quite high up the bookies list as well, aren't they?
I'll be amazed if they're not favourites for the league. Just based on
that's public money, isn't it? That's people who know Ryan Reynolds or know Rob McElhenney and have just gone, oh yeah, they won the league by 100. They had 100 odd points last year and whatnot, and we'll just stick some money on them just for. It's like people betting on the Dallas Cowboys every year or Packers, that kind of thing. It's like, all right, we'll just put money on them because we've heard of them, kind of thing.
But for those of you listening to the podcast, there you were unable to see Andy's raucous laughter at the notion that the Dallas Cowboys would ever get even to the NFC Championship game at this point, let alone win the Super Bowl. But that's for the NFL podcast, which will be coming soon to the CookieCast Podcast Network. Give it 6 weeks or so, and we'll be right in the swing of things with that particular sport as well. That's the end, ladies and gentlemen. That's 3 weeks of predictions. Oh, Matt has something to bring up. I do apologise. Let's go.
Just I think, obviously we kind of discussed it not on the podcast, but the kind of sad passing of Trevor Francis, first £1 million footballer. Kind of particularly, obviously, sold to Forest from Birmingham and scored the winning goal in the first European Championship game for Forest. And then he obviously went on, kind of retired before we really started watching football. But was more of a manager that we probably knew around football. So sad, 69. I think he was 69, I think some kind of heart kind of thing, and kind of slightly more sad. If you can put a kind of context in it, as Chris Bart-Williams passing away as well, also former Forest player, Sheffield Wednesday player as well, probably slightly more famous on that end of things, and perhaps not quite the distinction, but did score the goal that got us promoted back into the Premiership. 97, I want to say 97, 98. But again, like a really skillful player, really kind of important player that came into Forest. But yeah, only 49, which is terrible. Coaching football in the US. So yeah, just that kind of bit of a sad note to finish on, but the kind of those two significant kind of players in Forest history both passing away. Which is a shame.
Sheffield Wednesday had issued a statement saying it was one of the darkest days in their history because there were 2 players for obviously for Forest, but 2 big players for Sheffield Wednesday as well.
Yeah, obviously, I think Trevor Francis when he did retire, I think was Wednesday potentially his first managerial position.
So he was kind of a bit of a player coach moving into manager kind of thing. Yeah.
Did they? He was potentially the manager when they won the League Cup. Then I'd imagine.
I've just had a look. He managed them between 91 and 95, but he finished playing in 94. It says so. He must have been a player coach on that.
Oh well, I didn't realise that he played that long. Actually, I didn't realise that he kept playing up to 94. Unless it was a case of he probably sort of like started winding down in say 91 when he took over, and it's a bit of a similar way to how Brian Robson was when he first took over at the Borough. He was still listed as a player for like the next 3 seasons, but I think he only played like twice.
I think from reading some of the things, he was like came on occasionally off the bench as a bit of a spark for the game kind of thing. But yeah.
I know that obviously everything's pretty fresh at the moment, but in a few years down the line, he's one of them people where you'd be quite well, for me anyway, I'd be quite interested in seeing like a biopic about him. I think the story's definitely there, and people would be interested.
On the sort of the note of him being the first £1 million footballer, I don't know how much truth there was in it, but didn't Clough come out at the time and say, well, technically we only paid $998,000 for him or something like that, because they didn't want him to have that big head about him being the first £1 million footballer.
It's something like I sent a penny back to Birmingham just to make sure that it was like 999,999 and 99 pence kind of thing.
Classic Cloughy shit housing, wasn't it? Stuff like that. But that's what he did to keep his players like grounded and stuff like that. It obviously worked. So, but yeah, very sad, and like you said on the Chris Bart-Williams thing, he'd sort of become a bit of a almost like a cult hero of sorts, because on a Josh Widdicombe podcast that I listened to called Quickly Kevin, it came up at some point that great player and stuff, and that people thought that he might be so good was because the reason that he was so good was because he had tiny feet, and it came out that he wore something like size 5 boots, and that apparently he never used to tie the laces. They were just they were that sort of maybe it wasn't that he had size 5 feet, but he wore size 5 boots, and they were sort of undersized, so he didn't have to tie his shoelaces because they were already like slip-on tight or something like that.
A precursor to the horrible boots that are presented to us today.
Yeah, very, very much a precursor to today's slipper-like boots that players are wearing on their feet these days, and people wonder why players get so many injuries to their feet, because they're basically just wearing socks. But there you go. Yeah, like Matt said, very sad. Two great players and managers from the past, sadly passing away way before their time. Thank you to these three gentlemen for once again joining me to take me through the ups and the downs, and fingers crossed, hopefully the steadily permanent ups of Middlesbrough, Hull, Nottingham Forest, and of course Wrexham. But for how many more weeks, ladies and gentlemen? Let us know. What do you reckon? How many times this season will Andy chase that glory? And how many shirts should he have to purchase at the end of the season to show just how loyal he really, really is?
He doesn't need a shirt if he gets the tattoo on his leg, does he?
Well, you know that thing, that rumour that Duncan, I don't even know if it was a rumour. I think so. Duncan Ferguson obviously had, I think, 3 tattoos on his arm. Obviously, I think he had Rangers at the top, then Everton, and then Newcastle. And I don't know if there was like some sort of rumour that when he left Newcastle to go back to Everton, he sort of had a cross put through the Newcastle one, then Everton, something like that. But if we just pick a sort of a space on Andy's body and just like tattoo the record, like started off with Wrexham, and then we put the number of games that they lasted next to it, and then put their conqueror underneath it, and stuff like that, and so on and so on.
We might not even be discussing them by the end of the next podcast.
Quite possibly. Like I said, obviously we've taken it in good faith that they're not going to lose for the first 4 or 5 games of the season, because if they do, weeks 2 and 3's predictions are already to shit, basically.
So this is the truth of the matter then, isn't it? So they've clearly paid Paul to go on holiday just so that they can remain Andy's team for an extra few weeks.
Listen, all I can say is what Deadpool wants, Deadpool gets. So we'll say no more about it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again. And stay in touch, because we're going away for a few weeks, but we definitely will be back. It just might be towards the end of August for your next CookieCast football fix. But join us again. We'll be back very short. Goodbye.
So there you go. What do you think of that? The biggest, bumperest episode of the football podcast there's ever been. And with good reason. I think we can agree. More football, more podcast, more better. And grammar. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If I can trouble you before you go, please do consider click the like button, share the podcast around, leave a review where you can leave a review. Check out the website. The website's there for you to check it out and you to contact us. Social media links, email button, it's got it all. You can get in touch with us, let us know how you're enjoying the podcast, whether it's your favourite podcast, why it's your favourite podcast, stuff like that. That's it for this one. Till next time, which it's a little bit of ways, but there will be a next time. I'm going to say bye, and I'll catch you then.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Cookie Cast.